Well, fall season is among us. School is back in session. Football season has kicked off and symphony season is back too. September is classical music month, so we're talking about our rich local art scene on the map of classical music world. And we've got this retired violinist, celebrity historian Rafi Andonian here to grace us with our own private concert.
That's
Am I right?
If I
That's why
didn't
you're
bust
here.
my string, I busted my string. But this is my childhood violin. Grew up playing it for many years.
It's in great shape.
It is. It is. Other than the busted string I just got.
Yeah. That's fixable. So let's talk Arkansas.
Fixable.
What about our classical music tradition here? I don't think classical music when I think
agree.
Arkansas. So.
I know, but you might be surprised when you look closer, as is often the case with things, right? Specifically in NWA. But you know, the first time you have an orchestra play that we know on record is 200 years ago in Arkansas Post, the first European settlement. So it's been around for a while, but really, you know, kind of picks up, I would say, the first time you have it really on the map is prior to the Civil War in the 1850s. There's an Austrian immigrant. His name is Ferdinand Zeller. And he came over because of P.T. Barnum, believe it or not. He had a bunch of musicians come over to different shows. So he came over and made Fayetteville his hometown.
Really? Wow.
And you know what? He ended up publishing sheet music through a publisher in St. Louis, a major music publisher called Fayetteville Polka, believe it or not.
Wow.
So it's in honor of his hometown. It's the first time that we had an Arkansan published sheet music. That's the first time that we know, and it's about Fayetteville. The guy was right here from Fayetteville. Isn't that really cool? Now,
that's very
an
cool.
additional point on that, it's not dead. If you go to the Washington County Historical Society, sometimes they play it, and it was actually at the Walton Arts Center as a theme song to one of the plays they did in the late 90s. So it's still alive, believe it or not.
Wow.
It's here we are 170 years later.
That's amazing.
Yep. Now, it doesn't end there. After the Civil War, town bands become popular. Think about all the music that happened in the Civil War, marching bands and so on and so forth. That happened throughout the country, throughout Arkansas. And one of the hubs that emerges in Arkansas is right here in Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville. University of Arkansas gets a founding music director, and that founding music director moves to Fort Smith, opens a conservatory where he teaches a famous blind violinist.
Oh, wow.
Blind violinist. His name is William Worth. William Worth Bailey is his name. And he ends up, William Worth Bailey, with his wife, Catherine Bailey, establishing the Fort Smith Symphony, which remains the oldest in Arkansas in 1923. So the blind violinist who learned under that guy was the guy who did that. His wife, by the way, was a conductor at the symphony. Isn't that really cool?
There is a lot of history.
It is, right here in Arkansas. Now, let's keep going. Arkansas gets put on the national and international map. There are some firsts that take place here. Scott Joplin, you might have heard of Scott Joplin. He was a guy that is known as the king of ragtime. You know, the maple leaf rag, the entertainer. Right? So that guy was the first African-American opera composer. He's from Arkansas, grew up in Arkansas, believe it or not. So his opera, Tremonisha, which is still alive, has been revived sometimes. It was set right here in Arkansas. He had two that he put out. That's the one that survived, set right here in Arkansas, believe it or not. Another first that happened here was the first African-American woman to have her sheet music played by a major symphony. And her name was Florence Price.
Yes.
So another first that you have here. So that's Florence Price. And some of her papers are housed in University of Arkansas here in Fayetteville. So both of those are from Arkansas. But let's bring it home right here to Fayetteville, put it on the map. Also was a woman by the name of Sarah Caldwell. Now, you may have heard of Caldwell. She's from Fayetteville, not just from Arkansas, and she went on to become the first woman to conduct a symphony at the Met in New York City, believe it or not.
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
And from Fayetteville.
From Fayetteville, that's right. Now, she actually came back at the end of her life and as a professor at the University of Arkansas, professor of music, after she had a career at the Boston Symphony, Boston Opera, as the opera director, actually. So isn't that really interesting to think about? So you don't have just history in Arkansas and Fayetteville particular influencing the state, but you have Arkansans and Fayetteville folks influencing history of classical music throughout the nation and throughout the world.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know, let me ask you at least one question, because I have so many, but one's percolating, is what constitutes a symphony, Rafi? Because you hear that term, what does that even mean?
So it means sound coming together. So symphony, phony, sound, right? Sim comes from Greek syn, S-Y-N, so synchronized, right? You just change that one letter.
Okay.
It means sound coming together is what it means. Originally, it actually referred to different vocal octaves coming together,
Okay.
symphony. So anytime you have voices in concert, and then eventually, the term symphony comes to apply to instruments. Initially, voices were seen as more spiritually moving than just instruments. Think of like Gregorian chants,
Yeah.
for
Sure,
example.
yeah.
So you wouldn't have what we think of as symphony, which is like just instruments playing. However, symphonies were part of, for example, the beginnings of operas, like in overtures, for example, and those symphonies eventually became longer and longer, and maybe to 20, 25, 30 minutes.
Wow.
But who blew it out of the water? Of course, was Beethoven. He took it and said,
course.
we'll go an hour, 15 minutes, you
That
double it
guy.
up. I think of Beethoven as a Led Zeppelin of symphony.
Yeah.
I
Because
love
Led
it.
Zeppelin took like 3-minute songs that were like Beatles songs, right? And they went, we'll go 9 minutes with like Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Same idea. Beethoven just like shattered that, and he added like choruses in and sometimes like
Sure.
that. So he kind of like dramatized it big time. But that's what symphony means, and it kind of grows over time
Yeah, sure.
to mean kind of more instrument only as opposed to an opera, which of course, you have the vocal component in the
course.
opera.
Nice.
Robbie, thanks for filling us
Awesome.
in.
Yes,
you.
so fascinating.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Stay with us.